I got into my car this morning. I then proceeded to drive out of the apartment building. I'm on the ground floor, which is fun and irrelevant, and out the roller door onto the road. And I was sitting at the first set of traffic lights and I was thinking, what if tomorrow or even today I did something cold turkey? And then it got me thinking, about 20 years ago-ish, I was, I think, maybe in a bit more. Anyway, around 20 years ago, whatever, doesn't matter. My father, we got a phone call. Your dad has been rushed to hospital with chest pain. He went to the doctors and, complained of a bit of chest pain. The doctor leaned over, basically called an ambulance, took him up to the hospital. They basically said we're keeping him overnight for tests, and nothing ever came of it. Went home that night or that next day. And the crazy thing was, for basically most of his life, and particularly leading up to that point, he smoked cigarettes. I'm talking a carton a week. I'm talking chain smoker. That's a lot of ciggies, or as we like to call them, health sticks, lung lollies, cancer sticks. That's a lot. And he had tried to give up, didn't really work, but that flashpoint of chest pain, overnight in hospital, it turned out to be nothing. He gave up cold turkey and hasn't smoked since. And what can we do cold turkey in our financial life? That's what I want to ask you today. And I even think, and the title of this kind of episode, it is around that whole, what if you woke up tomorrow and ... did something radical financially, did something relatively radical in your world financially or lifestyle and all that stuff. So that's what we're going to talk about today. My name's Glen James. This episode is brought to you by Sky Wealth. I'll talk about them a little bit later on in the episode because it's really important to get our insurances sorted. So if you need to get your income or life insurance sorted, you can head to sky.com.au, click contact or whatever, and you can have a 15-minute chat with one of their advisors and they'll point you in the right direction and show you the process. Until then, let's talk about what if I woke up tomorrow and... So I've broken this kind of chat and I won't be with you for too long today, but I just kind of started brain dumping a heap of stuff. And for me, it was a reflection of what have I learned in the past and because I just think we're always learning. And one of the examples, this is so dumb, and I'll tell you the dumb example, but I've just broken up into kind of 3 sections. I'll start with life and career because it's just, 3 little points that I've got. Then we'll talk about money. Within the money section, I'll talk about everyday spending, investing, and some other stuff. I'll talk about risk taking, and then I might round it out with a vibe thing, and then I'll read some stuff that people wrote in the Facebook group. So that kind of dumb thing that I learned just recently, and I was reflecting on it, again, driving to work, as I was doing something in my life that was a financial thing and I kept doing it and I was just kept getting annoyed and shocked. And since I've kind of built this studio here, I actually changed what I did. And for me, it was a real dumb thing, and you might already do this. And that dumb thing was, when I'm going to get some type of job done from a tradesperson or I don't know, and I'll use the dumb example. I took my boat to get some work done on it, and I didn't ask for a quote. And I thought surely they'll be able to fix this and do what I wanted to do. They had to install an anchor in the bow and, a winch and all that. I'm like, gosh, I reckon I could get this sorted for under $8,000. And A couple of weeks later, I got a phone call. Hey, are we able to send a progress payment through? We're about halfway, but it'd be sweet if you could do a progress payment. And then what happened was I got the progress payment and it was $10,000 and I almost had a stroke. So kind of ever since that thing, I wasn't doing it in my life. I wasn't kind of getting quotes and I'd get a tradesperson to come and just do it. But since doing this, renovation, I even had some painters come in and quote the other day to finish some work, and the quotes vary. So for me, one of the dumb things that I'm going to just, and I have implemented from tomorrow, for any type of work or people that I organise to do stuff, I will absolutely get at least 2 quotes. That's one of the things that I'm just changing cold turkey overnight. Done. And I want you to think about in your financial life, I'm just going to throw a heap of stuff here. Just take one thing and try and implement it tomorrow. We will be coming up against habits and behaviours, but we need to slow down, be measured, be considered, and just slowly ratchet some of these things up if we need to. Or can you go cold turkey and from tomorrow start doing something? So the 3 points I've got with life and career, I wish I was told earlier on to play to my strengths and acknowledge my weaknesses. So you might be doing something now and you're not in your strengths. I need you to play to your strengths, acknowledge the weaknesses, but don't double down on them. There's an online tool called Clifton's Strength Finder. I think you can do an online thing. It's $55. Do the profile. It will actually tell you a really good thing of what your personal strengths are. And you might find that your strengths of what you're really good at and the job that you're currently doing, not career, because we've got a career and we've got jobs within our career, there might be misalignment. So I want you to work on that ASAP, because some of you are in your early 20s. Some of you are in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. There's a whole chunk of people that are listening that have still more than 20, 30 years to go in their working life. And that's why tomorrow, what if I woke up tomorrow, looked at my strengths and went, okay, I need to make a plan. I've got 40 years of work to go. I'm not working in my strengths. I don't love this part of the job. If it takes a year to transition out and get another role, it's worth it. I want you to take risks. I'll talk about this a little bit in the money investing thing, but life is full of risks and it's okay to take good, healthy risks, provided you have a bit of a fallback position. Write down, get a bit of paper, and I always have a bit of paper because I like to draw and write. Write down the thing, put a line down the middle of the page, write the thing at the top, write down all the positives that you can think about. Write down all the detractors or the possible risks. Once you've got the list of risks, I want you to write next to them, let's actually play that out a little bit more. It might end up that risk that you thought was in your head, you've put it on paper and you're like, oh, actually, that's actually a really low chance of that happening. And if it does happen, I've got this as a backup. Do the same thing. Best case scenario on the other side. Write it all down. Each point, do a sub point for each point. Really get micro and take risks. You just want to avoid the risks that have catastrophic outcomes. In our book, Sort Your Career Out and Make More Money, I talked about taking good career risks and avoiding the catastrophic ones. And for those who don't know what Russian roulette is, you had the old gun with a chamber, we'll just call it 5 chambers, and a thing that spins like in the old time movies. What Russian roulette was, they would put one bullet in the chamber, spin the chamber, hold it against someone's head, pull the trigger. If there's one bullet in there and there's 5 chambers, you've got a 20% chance of being shot and killed. So that example, we would avoid that at all costs because there are catastrophic consequences. So when it comes to risk taking, avoid the risks that could have catastrophic consequences. We're not selling the whole house and putting it all into a meme coin. Catastrophic consequences, potentially, so we just avoid it. Sure, there is a chance that it would go really good. There is a chance that they would pull that trigger and I would get, one of the 4 empty barrels and live to fight another day. But we have to avoid catastrophic risks. And my third point with this little life and career kind of starter thing, in my life, and I use this in my life, in my vibe and all that, and the reason it's the third point is because it does flow into some of the money stuff. I run a traffic light system in a lot of areas in my life. I never used to, and I always have to when I'm coming up against different situations, whether it is personal life, work life, career life, business life, nightlife, all that kind of stuff. My traffic light system, I go on a green, pause on an amber or yellow, stop on a red. The reason why, you could be like, oh, we've got a chance to buy this property and a few things are happening and it's looking like it could fall over and, amber light. Nah, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. You run through an amber light, you could be sweet. There's no other cars coming. But the chances of having an issue if you run a red light is so high. So I just go on a green, pause on a yellow, stop on a red. I've learned not to force it in any situation. It could be a green light. It could require a bit of a force and a hustle, but you've got to start to learn that this is a flow thing. It's just part of the process and just do not force it. You force things, they break. Let's talk about money stuff now. The 3 categories: everyday spending. So tomorrow, if you do not have a spending plan, what if you woke up and even if you did it this coming weekend, you've got to get a spending plan from day one. I was talking to someone the other day. They were in their late 30s and still only had 1 bank account. I mean, it blows. Also, do what you want, but it just blows my mind that in this day and age with the options of different bank accounts and structures, that you just do not need 1 bank account. You could be really good with money and have that 1 bank account, and each year it just increases and you see all that stuff. But you need to know when you quarantine your spending account, when you quarantine your savings and all that, it will give you a level of peace and certainty and control. And for the savers out there, you sometimes need permission to spend. So having a spending plan system with different accounts, this account here is just for my everyday spending, you have permission to spend. Another thing that I've learned along the way, and I would encourage you might need to build up to this, you might not, is where possible, pay your bills annually if they give you the option to, if it's cheaper to. I was talking with someone the other day and they had the money, but they were still paying their bills monthly for the psychology cash flow part. But when you look back, well, I'm paying 10% more to pay this monthly. It's just don't do it. It's literally cheaper to pay yearly. Now, some things I do pay monthly, my health insurance, whether they take the money yearly or monthly, they charge the same. So for those who might be new to all this, have a look at the car insurance. If it's $125 a month, do 125 times 12, that will give you the annual number. If you look on the website where it says annual cost, that should be cheaper than the multiple of the 12, okay? It could take a bit to get to that, but if you've got heaps of money in the bank account, you should look at paying your bills annually because you'll actually save money. This one here, it is a bit scandalous, if I may. You cannot get true prosperity from expense cutting or cutting out stuff. Yes, you can save money. Yes, I can pay my bills annually. Yes, I can optimize my spending and look at all my phone plans, my insurance plan, everything. I can get frugal and shop at Aldi. I can do all this stuff and you will save money, but it's not your golden ticket to financial freedom and prosperity. It will help, absolutely, but it will cap out. So that's why you need to just fully understand. You need to focus on the big rocks in your life. In our financial life, the biggest rock you have is your income. Focus on that. Obviously, do your spending plan. Obviously, optimize and all that, but you'll get the most financial wins and financial gains and future prosperity by focusing on your income, not paying too much for a house or rent relative to your situation and when you can. Your car, a lot of you have too much car and you just don't need that. Who you're with, kids. So you just focus on the big rocks and then look down at each one. So I'll say that again. You cannot get true financial freedom and prosperity from saving $3 a week on not having coffee one day a week. But you can have full financial prosperity in the future if you decide I'm happy to drive around a $10,000 Corolla and invest that $250 a week or a month or whatever the payment would be if you had a really expensive brand new car, okay? And also, take this for what you can or will or want. I don't mind. I'm just throwing all this stuff. You're going to have thoughts about things that you can wake up tomorrow in your financial life and change just from listening me crap on about this list, and make your own thing up. I'm just seeding the thoughts. I want you to really, when it comes to your spending plan, focus 100% on values, then within that, needs and wants. Oh, but Daddy, I really love him. I love that t-shirt. What I want you to do is any type of decision that you need to make, try and remember, does it align with my values? Do I value buying a mountain bike and going mountain biking? Absolutely. Awesome. I'll buy the mountain bike. Within that category, is this a want or a need? Now, we do need a mountain bike to go mountain biking, but we're only a year in and we're just getting started. Well, let's buy a cheaper one to start with and not be the person with all the gear, no idea, and just kind of ratchet up. I've been guilty before of going full ham and buying all the stuff, just getting started, and it's a waste of money. Even if it is within that value category, just be very conscious when it comes to the big 5 rocks that we talk about. Your incomes, well, I would say that's a need. You need your income. Your housing, I shared recently on the podcast, I moved from a house that was $1,000 a week to $700 a week relative to my world, my location and all that. I resolved that that was a bit of a luxury that I didn't need. It was a 4-bedroom bloody house with a big yard. Freaking all the rooms were empty. I'm like, what am I doing here? So I readjusted and looked at the needs. And the needs was I needed an apartment or a place to live, but I didn't need to spend the extra premium because guess what? I'll survive. So wants and needs. Car, that's a big one. You'll get wiped out if you get wanty with your cars. Amen, that's me. And that's why for me, I just pay cash for cars. I don't have car loan. I've got a mortgage and all that. And sure, on paper, things can look better on paper. There's the textbook way of doing it, which would be if you've got a mortgage and you're in debt, the textbook says don't pay cash for the car. The textbook says get a car loan, lower interest rate, keep that cash in the mortgage or invested, and you get the spread and it's all good. The textbook says that. But you get a freaking lump of flesh like this holding the textbook and he gets cute and does dumb things like buys too much car. So for me, I just buy a car with cash, even though the textbook says to not do that. I was listening to a YouTube thing the other day, and watching on YouTube rather, and if you haven't already, you can subscribe to our YouTube. This episode is on YouTube, full video, and it was a pilot. I was looking at, pilot reacts to, all those horrific accidents and whatnot. And at the end, this stuck with me. The guy said, remember, superior judgment trumps superior knowledge. Just remember that. Superior judgment trumps superior knowledge. So I can have all the book smarts in the world and know that, well, if I get a car loan and, have that money invested over there and, get the spread and it's cheaper and it's all good, awesome. That's knowledge. But superior judgment says, well, I could actually spend more and go down a slippery slope there. So for me, you've got to know who you are. The last kind of money housekeeping thing for the first part was get your insurance sorted. The big rock in your life is your income. You've got to get income insurance to make sure if that income stopped due to accident or illness, that you would still have money walking through the door. Look at these big rocks. We've got our income, we've got our house, we've got our car. We insure our car, we insure our house, we insure our contents, we insure our health, but we don't insure our ability to get out and earn that income. Let's talk about investing. I've never met an Aussie who is over 50 who didn't wish they added more money to their super years ago. I want you to ignore the online crap that says don't invest in super because you're going to retire early and you're going to need to access that money. Maybe. Most people, most of the time, they do not retire early because guess what? You need purpose, you need something to do, and a lot of people that want to retire early end up retiring early from the workforce and then they say, oh, now I want to do my passion, which is this small business. Just freaking do the small business now and have stuff in your life, have purpose. Do that. You'll make more money, dialing down on your strength and your passion, which is this small business thing. Don't wait until you've accrued all this money, then start drawing down. You'll be fine. If you're like, oh, Glenn, I save $1,000 a month. I'm not putting $1,000 a month into super. Okay, don't. Do what you want. But can you say, well, okay, there could be some logic in what this guy's saying. So I'm going to put 20% in or 30% or half of it into super. But I can guarantee you, I've never, ever, ever met a client who's coming to my office, anyone online is about to retire, who does not admit to saying, I wish I did more into super earlier on. I was contributing extra, not heaps, just a little bit, into my super in my 20s. You're allowed to do that. It's crazy. Oh my gosh. Set up a little contribution, salary sacrifice. You will not miss it. I want you, and this is like the whole investing thing as well, I want you to wake up tomorrow and focus on your main thing. Your main thing isn't your freaking $1,000 investing app portfolio. Your main thing isn't your 50K little portfolio in your own name of ETFs. Your main thing isn't your $300,000 super balance or your $100,000 super balance. Your main financial thing is your income. You've got to focus on that. You are an expert at hairdressing, you're an expert at barbering, you're an expert at doing signs, you're an expert at painting, you're an expert at graphic design, you're an expert at plumbing, you're an expert at butchering, you're an expert at candlestick making, you're an expert at baking, you're an expert of project management, you're an expert at being a receptionist, you're an expert at being a barista, you're an expert at being a barrister. What you do for most of your day for work, you are an expert in or are fast becoming an expert in. Just set up a portfolio, focus on what you're good at, and shovel money into your share portfolio. Keep your eyes off it, keep your mitts off it, get a one-stop shop investment, and just pump it. You're not a fund manager, believe it or not. You're not an ETF manager. You're not a strategic asset allocation consultant. I live in this money world every freaking minute of my life. And I don't focus on my investing. I focus on my core main thing. What about that? Now, in this investing thing, what if you said, if I could rewind to when I first got a job and got into the habit of putting some money every single day into my investment account or my super account, and I want to do it from tomorrow, can you look at your calculator, put your weekly salary in, times 5%, equals X. Can you start by doing 5% a week and still make things happen? Can you flip your budget over? So we do a top-down budget. It gets harder the more you have expenses and kids and all that hanging off you. A top-down budget means income comes in, then all our expenses, then at the bottom is what's left over. So can we do it? Income comes in, investment comes out, then we spend the rest. The bottom-up budget that we kind of teach for people that are already kind of strapped into the world and all that is we go the bottom up. So we look at all the expenses we've got, then we say the income, and then we find the difference, because it's a little bit easier when you're starting budgeting to do a bottom up. And then once you do your bottom up, you go, okay, I've got this much coming in. These are all my expenses. I've got X amount left. Then you need to optimize that X amount left. So can you be really radical and go, from tomorrow, I'm even just doing 1% of the household income into super, into investments. I don't care. I know I was getting a bit out of control with the investing in super, because you probably won't retire early, because it's really fun and excellent when you see, people in their 20s that don't have kids yet on Instagram and TikTok saying, I don't invest in super because I'm going to retire early. You haven't had kids yet. You don't have a full vibe of everything happening yet. And I'm pleased, at me and prove me wrong. There will be the odd outlier, but most people, they will actually not retire early. But also don't care, do what you want. Okay, and finally the other thing, nice cars. I've learned nice cars doesn't mean people are successful. You out there, you've just got the brand new car. Congratulations on that loan. You're just so successful. You got approved for a $30,000 loan. Congratulations. I'm shaking in midair here. So that's kind of what I've learned. The real wealth that people have you can't see. Wink. And that's why, people have always Googled, Glen James net worth and all that stuff. My net worth is none of your business. It's private. How about that? Because it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Two last things. Japanese cars are worth it. Seriously. I recently bought that Volvo and I love it. It's fun. It's awesome. Got rid of the Japanese car, into the Volvo, went over a pothole, dented the rim, took it to a tire place. He's like, yeah, the Euros, they're just not as strong in the rims, and it's a 19-inch rim and all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, one of the other rims has been welded and repaired. I'm like, far out. Why did I go to Europe? I should have just stayed in Japan. So that's kind of my thing, is I'd rather a second-hand Japanese car than a brand new any other car. Straight up. Don't get lured in by this 7-year warranty for this MG that's 20 grand. They're pieces of crap. Okay, have I pissed you off yet? If not, let's keep going. Second-hand furniture and white goods. A lot of this crap in my new studio is second-hand. These desks are second-hand. Table out there second-hand. In my apartment, my dining room table and chairs are second-hand. Outdoor stuff second-hand. I've resolved that you can get so much good stuff second-hand if you wait and if you want to. Now, if you've got the money and you want to buy that brand new $2,000 lounge, which is probably cheap, I've got no idea. I need to do one of those things and actually see what stuff's worth. Let me just have a look. Lounge lovers, only because I drive past it in Newcastle every day. Let's just see what a lounge is worth. Oh yeah, there's one here. Long Beach Coastal left-hand corner lounge for $3,000. Yeah, if you want a lounge, you want to spend $3,000 and you got $3,000, go buy a new lounge. But for me, I will always default to potentially just having a look online and getting secondhand, just to save the money. Because, and as well, here at the studio, there's a bathroom with a shower and all that stuff, and I want to get a little side cupboard for the bathroom just to put towels on, because I'll sometimes have a shower here and shave or brush my teeth or whatever, and there's no cabinet in there. So I'm like, I'm not going to Kmart or any of those places and buying anything new, one, I'm sick of undoing boxes here. And two, it doesn't need to be new. I just want to save the money. And three, I can pretty much get something for free. I got a whole buffet sideboard over here in the studio that I got for free on Marketplace. She turned out she was in our Facebook group and knew who I was, but that's always fun and funny. Okay, we'll be back right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to moneypodcast.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay, risk taking. I want you to sleep on it, but not too much, okay? Because what can happen is you can end up in analysis paralysis. Yes, get data on the table. Yes, consider the risks. Yes, write all the goods, the bads that could happen out of it. Yes, write down what you think that this is a green light and I think we should proceed, but we're thinking about it. It will never get perfect enough to do it. So don't wait for perfection. Pull the trigger, sleep on stuff, but not too much. If you sleep on it and the vibes are becoming negative, probably walk away. If you sleep on it and the vibes are still there, but you're in analysis paralysis, friggin' pull the trigger and get going. Buy it, invest in it, get advice, get professional advice, take risks, have good people in your corner, because that's another thing. I know people in their 40s now that I categorically know could have purchased an investment property or two 13 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but they haven't because they have been swept up in analysis paralysis and been swept up in not understanding how things work, and it can be done. So if you're in your 20s or 30s, pull the trigger, invest. Please invest. And the risk taking I had, avoid the catastrophic risks that have the chance, avoid risks that have a chances of catastrophic failure. So I've covered that. Okay. In finishing, then we'll talk about some stuff in the Facebook group that you said. This is the category of vibe. For me, I don't know if it's an age thing, and I'll press the vulnerable button here. I'll press the probably shouldn't talk about all this crap, but here we are. If you hear it, I didn't cut it out, so that's weird. I've talked about mental health for a while. If something doesn't feel right, if you're always struggling to get to sleep, if you're struggling to get out of bed, number one, before we go there, just number one, I always have a crap night's sleep if I'm not asleep by 10:30. I pretty much make a rule with my Netflix and streaming and crap like that. If I watch an episode of a night, I don't watch more than one a night. I just do one episode, then done. Then I'll go and listen to an audio book or read or just not be looking at the screen. Sit on Instagram for an hour and a half. But you know what I mean? Like, I've just made the rule that I need to get in bed by 10:30. I need to move my body each day, even if it's just walking or whatever. So if you're doing all that and you're eating good, like I now eat, I order the meals from Activate Foods on the New South Wales Central Coast. They deliver all on the coast, Newcastle and Sydney. Awesome food. It's helped me with portion control, losing weight, feeling great. Look out, ladies, your boy's back. That type of vibe, right? So having said all that, if you're doing all the right things and you're struggling to get to sleep, if you are struggling to get out of bed, if you feel that you have big mood swings and all that, just go to your GP because, and particularly for women, it could be, I'm just going to go here with a poll, like it could be a thyroid thing because there's a lot of thyroid issues in women. It could be a mental health thing. Get some blood tests, do a screener, all that stuff. But all that to say, it's okay if you are not okay. I got my mental health under control in my 30s. I literally look back at my 20s and think it was such a write-off and I wasn't in a good place, and I started my own business when I was 25 and I was just a wreck. Like, it was the hardest period of my life. I wish I knew that I needed medication for depression and anxiety, but I pushed through and I've been amazing ever since. Then it went to the ADHD thing for me. And this is a problem. Like, I'm a high capacity person, borderline workaholic, all that stuff. Found out that the ADHD was a thing. And I'm like, far out. If I only had these freaking tablets 20 years ago, my life would have been better. But I'm here now. And that's the same thing. Oh, I don't have much in savings. If only I'd saved 20 years ago, I would have more money in a house. Okay, can't change the past. Can't live in the what ifs or if onlys. We are here now. What are you going to do? So I got the ADHD thing. Weirdly, I can actually get stuff done during a day. Hugely productive. I'm fired up. And then the last thing that I worked on last year, my year was a really, really hard time last year. And I look back at from my 20s up until now to my 40, I just turned 40 last year. In the relationship world, I read a book called Attached. And my attachment style was avoidant. So last year in a relationship, not anymore, worked with the psychologist, did the couples counseling and all that. And the relationship didn't end because of that. But I'd worked on it and I worked out that my attachment style was avoidant. I would just avoid. And you just got to read this book, right? Like, wasn't hugged enough as a kid and all that fluffy stuff. And so we are a product of our past. Read the book Attached, and then I've worked on it. I would say last year, hey, I'm feeling a little bit avoidant. I just need 10 minutes alone or whatever. It's not you, communicate it, and it's awesome. And that's the whole thing. You can change your behaviors over time. You can't change who you are, okay? And this is, the big holes of guilt that I feel and regret and all that. All the relationships I had in my 20s were a train wreck because I was the problem with I couldn't handle a relationship because of the avoidant thing. And it would be off again, on again. And it was really hard. And so I'm really happy for the next tomorrow onwards in my life that I'm in such a good spot. Mental health's great. I know really who I am for the first time ever. I was talking to my cousin today in his late 20s. He's in a relationship. He said something and I'm like, trigger, bingo, bingo, bingo. I think, mate, you have an avoidant attachment style. Half the community will have a secure attachment style. The rest will be avoidant or anxious, and a very small part will have an anxious avoidant. And I'd sent him the audiobook and I said, I think this is you. You need to just be aware of this and talk with your partner. And he's like, oh my gosh, it is. And the whole thing with them was moved in together. He doesn't want to share money because he doesn't want to lose control or his independence. And I'm like, well, if you do share your money, it doesn't mean you'll lose your control or your independence, but you see it that way because of your attachment style. So I've struggled with wanting to turn back time into my 20s and know what I know now about myself. But I'm here now. And that's the same with our money, right? And then for me, the self-esteem and body image, you've probably heard me say it over the years on the podcast, my self-esteem and body image is basically just left of a doormat, and I'm really working on that. Because from here on forward, all we have is today and going forward. The past is past. We're here now. What can you change tomorrow when it comes to your career and life, your money, you're investing, you're spending, don't go to the boat shop and say, can you fix this without getting 2 freaking quotes? That hurt, that one. Risk-taking, the vibe, mental health, relationships, self-esteem. So yeah, me personally, for the next, I'm good to go. Like, I've said at the start of the year on the podcast, like, I am back, baby. I'm so back. I'm the best I've ever been. I'm ready from today and tomorrow on to actually start my life, because I don't think there's anything else to discover about myself. Probably is, but like, mental health done, ADHD done, attachment style done, working on the body image thing, seeing the psychologist and all that, and just working on stuff. Because if I'm not the best version of me, I can't be the best version of me. And I really, really, really want to encourage you to pick one thing from today that you can be like, all right, tomorrow this is changing. And my question to you is, what is that? We'll take a break, and when we get back, we will read some stuff in the Facebook group and call it an episode.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to moneypodcast.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's moneypodcast.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay. I asked in the Facebook group, knowing what you know now when it comes to money, what would you do differently if you could wake up tomorrow and start again, or have a clean slate? So I asked everyone that. Pat said, I can't complain in life. Every mistake has been a lesson. Yeah, that's true. And a series of chain reactions that have got me to where I am today, and also the person that I am and the connections I've made. So I'm grateful. In saying that, my biggest do-over would be saving/investing/getting that snowballing happening early, if it's so crucial to wealth building. That's interesting, because the silver lining of my horrendous year last year was that I discovered more about me and how I react to situations. I did the schema therapy and the avoidance stuff. So yeah, I did a rebuild last year, guys. Liz. Oh, here we go. I haven't read any of these. I've just copied them out of the Facebook group. And you know how I was crapping on earlier about everyone just says when they're older, I wish I did more in super. Liz, I would have got my super sorted when I first started working, contributed extra so the fees and insurances didn't eat away the small balance, and not cancelled the life insurance, probably. But mostly just seen as the first and easiest step to long-term investing, and how the magic of compounding would set me up in the future. It's not too late to make those choices now, but a bit of education back in the day would have made a huge difference. And that's it. It's like this education and understanding. It's about crapping or getting off the potty and taking some action. It's about taking risks. It's about values. It's about priorities. It's about wants and needs. It's just everything, guys. It's the vibe. Kelsey, if I stumbled across this kind of education, money, and she's on the Monet, earlier in my life, I am 32 and started learning about this stuff 4 or 5 years ago, I would have absolutely made different financial decisions, like got into property earlier or invest earlier. But alas, they say the second best time to start is today. My today started around the same 4 to 5 years ago, and we move into our first home next week thanks to being educated on this stuff. Woo! Good on you, Kelsey. And that's the whole thing. Kelsey at 32 is saying, oh, if only I could do that then. I'm at 40 saying, if only I could do that then. People in their 50s are saying, if only I can do that then. There is a theme here, my friends, and that theme is we all live with regrets, and today we are living in the past of our futures tomorrow or something like that. You are living in the you of tomorrow's history. Make a change. And bingo. Jessica, got a full-time job straight out of high school and bought a house instead of going to uni. She would have changed that. That's interesting. I won't actually add a comment or we'll be here all day. Probably will though. Natalie, I wouldn't have been so frivolous when we were dual income, no kids. Cass, pay myself first and have a cash flow plan from my first job of 15 instead of 15 years after. S, as I would have bought Bitcoin when I was in high school. Jess, started my career straight out of high school instead of stuffing around going to uni, dropping out, repeat. Theme there much? Different Jess, same name. Michael said a spending plan. Bromwin, I wish I would have started more to my super earlier rather than getting it all going to extra payments on the mortgage. Started and continued investing outside super, even if only small amounts. Norma, learn about finances earlier and take an active role in my financial well-being for the long term. Sarah, it's too long, but you can look up Sarah on this post in the Facebook group. Siobhan, not wasted so much money on my hyperfixations. Amen. Been there. Then I got medicated. Maddie, BFA before moving in with my partner. There's a story there because he did the ... More balance between smashing the mortgage, buying high-growth ETFs, and spending money on hobbies and interests. That's good. I like the balance thing. It doesn't have to be all. Shannon, I would have not sold my Holden HQ for $800 and leveraged every cent available to me to open up a chain of daycares and avocado coast centers, avocado toast cafes. Sarah, understanding spending plan, living within my means and educating myself around long-term finances. Jenny, I would have started my 3 money buckets when I first got my job as a 12-year-old. Sarah, educated myself instead of later in life. A uni friend recommended this group to me and I ended up buying an older house and cried. I thought I made a massive error and it's gone up near 70% since I bought it 3 years ago. Rich much? Megan, not sold the shares I was given by my grandparents to travel Europe with a sister at 21. Could have easily saved and gone a few years later. Yeah, we're here now. It was probably fun. Would have liked to have instead invested money every pay, even if it was a small amount. Also note to younger self, don't need a new outfit every week to go clubbing. Don't you? I think you do. Simon, he's my people. He is my people. A spender that didn't get their shite together until late 20s. He wanted to start investing earlier. Jane and Tim, we've got a joint profile with couples, guys. Ding, ding, ding. Start investing as soon as I could. Never have a credit card or a car loan. Save half my pay while I was young with no dependents. Charlotte, never sold the first house until 2020. Caitlin, I've got to get you the link because Caitlin, I see her in the Facebook group. She's a rising contributor. She's going to come on the podcast. I would take back getting Spaceship account at 18 and pulling my money out after a year because I thought it was a scam. Eleanor, all of it. Investing in extra super. I would have rented at smaller places and saved for a house much earlier. Braden, BTC. Kai, invest earlier. Scott, so many things. Scott, if you're struggling out there, mate, and you don't have the money, let me know your postal address and I'll just gift you a copy of the Quick Start Guide to Investing in the mail. Because I know you're doing it tough. I know you're a Richie and you got all these accounts and you don't need the investing book. But if you want to support the podcast, if you got under $20 to support us with, would love it. But if you don't have the money, I'll send you a copy for free. I know you're doing it tough. We'll leave it there. Hope you got something out of it. Remember, when it comes to money in life, you can keep it simple. You can give some, save some, and spend some, preferably in that order. My name's Glen James, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to today's podcast. If you want to support us, there is one way you can do that. You can send the episode to a friend, a family member, or your group chat if you think those people would find it valuable. We also thank you for leaving a review on Apple or Spotify. If you've listened to this podcast for some time, or if you've read any of my books, you would know that giving and generosity in a financial sense is a big thing in my life. If you think it's time that you are ready to give financially to a good cause, you could head to our website, moneypodcast.com.au/charities to see the charities that we support.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the product disclosure statement, PDS, and target market determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive Pty Ltd, the publisher of this podcast, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds Financial Services License 451289. Opinions or comments from any guests on the podcast are theirs and not those of the host or the publisher or their respective license holders.